gonna start recording. Alright, so the two things we were supposed to do today were create a delete query in route and create an update query and a put route, right? So we're gonna start with the delete. It's a little bit simpler. Who got the delete route to work? Woo! That's awesome. Alright, well, give me some code. Let's do the query first. What are we gonna call it? Delete student. And what are we passing in?
ID.
Why? Exactly. We're going to select the ID in the database because that's how we're finding what we want to delete. Great. So I'm going to pass in ID. Cool. So what do we start all these queries with? Return. And why are we doing that again? You don't have to return something. But if we don't return something, when you call this function inside of your route, you're not going to get any response back. So we want to return something, right? So that we have something to send back to the client. Great. Okay, so return. What's next? DB. What's the table name? Students. Thank you. And then how are we selecting this thing? A where clause. Where what? ID is ID. What are we going to do to it?
Delete it.
Dot delete. Great. You could write it like this as well. The where clause. That's perfectly applicable. Let's see. I'll blow that up. Sorry. But this is it's a pretty simple line of code. We're returning the database. We're returning the table where the ID is equal to the ID. We want to delete it. Pretty straightforward. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
So if we have it wrote the colon way, would we want to have them all like that for consistency?
I would say so. Yeah. Just so that if anybody else comes and looks at your code, they're not like, why did they do it this way here and this way here? Yeah, the consistency leads to less confusion, and it's easier to follow the patterns. Any other questions?
Is there a reason to do it one way or the other, or are they both basically the same?
They're both pretty close to the same. Whichever one makes sense to you and that you like better, use that. Great. So we've got our query. Looks like it's going to work. I think that it is. Did you have a question? Okay, cool. So let's go back into our routes. So what sort of HTTP request are we expecting to use this delete query? Delete. App.delete. What's our route going to look like? Words, please. Colon. So what does that colon mean again? What are we symbolizing? It is part of the route, and it could be anything. Yeah. Right. We're giving it the name ID. This is going to be passed in as a request parameter, right? So we want to be able to access this with the by going into our request object and going to the params. Right. So it will be called ID. So then, with every route, what is our second argument? It's an anonymous function, right? Rec, res. If you want, throw next in there for error handling. Okay, so what are we going to call? Queries.delete student. Thank you. And what are we giving it as an argument? Rec.params.id. Yeah. Then what do we want to do? Because hypothetically, what should happen there is that when this route is hit, we're going to call the delete student function and give it the request params ID. So it should do the thing right there. But if we just leave it like this, what's going to happen when the client makes a request to our server? Something's going to happen, but the client's not going to know. It's just going to hang and keep spinning. So we need to send back some sort of response, right? So let's tag a .then on there. What do we want to send back? 204. Cool. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right, let's see if it works. So we're going to go to, I think this is running on localhost 3001. I'm going to go to /ID. Let's see what happens. I should probably run it first, huh? Okay, it's running. Localhost 3001. We're going to do a delete. I've only got 2 students in here, so do we want to delete 1 or 2?
2.
2 it is. Delete. 204, no content. Great. So how can we confirm that we actually deleted ID 2? This says that we did it, but I want to see it. Send a get. Just going to do a get all. We got 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but no 2. Great. It did the thing. Sweet. All right. So next up, well, first, does anybody have any questions about the delete route or the delete query? Good? All right. So next, we want to update. And update is a little bit more complicated because it combines some of these ideas together. So let's go back to our queries and let's write that one first. All right. So what do we want to call our function? Update student. That's a good one. Straightforward, says exactly what we're doing with the function. What are we going to pass in? ID and student. Why? No help? Exactly. So we're finding by ID just like we did with the get one by ID and the delete route. We have to choose which student we're going to update, and that's how we're finding that student, by the ID. Then we also have to give it the information that we want to update it with, right? Which is represented by student. You could call this updated student info if you wanted, like updated student info, if no, info e, right? To give it kind of, to make it more readable so that anybody looking at this will be like, all right, so we're passing in the ID and the updated student info. Those are the 2 things that we need to make this request. Great. What do we start it with every time? Return. DB students, which is the table. DB is our connection to the database. What's next? Where? What? ID. All right, the column of ID is equal to the ID that we're passing in. Dot update. And then what are we passing into that? Updated student info. So I'm going to go check out the knex docs real quick and see what we can see about the update method. So query builder, I'm going to do update, such as insert, update, delete, where null, updated at, don't care about that, returning, update. There we go. So there's our update method. Creates an update query taking a hash of properties or key value pair to be updated based on other query restraints. All right, so this is kind of what it's expecting, something like this. And here, I'll blow this up a little bit. All right, so instead of passing it this hard-coded data, we're passing it the updated student info object that we're getting in our request. Questions? All right, let's see what happens. So for now, let's just leave it like that and see what happens. That should do the thing, right? We're returning our connection to the database, table students, and then we're finding where the column ID is equal to the ID that we're passing in, and we're telling it to update that particular row with our updated student info object. Let's go back to our app.js. What kind of HTTP request are we expecting? A put. Cool. App.put. And what's our route going to look like? Remember, what are the two things we were giving our colon ID? We need to give it an ID again, because we can then access that via the request params, or rec.params in this case. Next thing, we're always going to pass into our anonymous function. There we go. Whoop. Rec, res. Great. All right, what query are we calling? Queries.update student. And what are the two things we're passing in? And rec.body. Great. Okay. So we expect that to do the thing. If we look back at our query, the first parameter was the ID. The second parameter is the updated student info. All right. Here we have the first parameter is the ID. The second one is updated student info. In our route, we're passing in the first argument is the rec.params ID, and the second one is the request.body, which should contain the student info. Questions? Dang puppos. All right, so we still need to send a response though, because if our client sends a request to our server at this route and we don't send a response, it's just going to hang and time out, and the user is going to be like, did it work? I don't know. So let's go ahead and send something. I'm going to tag another .then on here and say updated student is what this updated student. Benny. Hey. Thank you. We're going to updated student in this .then block is representing the data that is being returned from our query. So this right here represents what is returned from our update student function. Right? That's why we were returning, so that we can use whatever comes back from that. If we don't return, we can't use anything. So then let's just do a nice little fat arrow and send a response of updated student studnet. I always type it that way. Okay, queries.update student. We're passing in again the ID from the rec.params, and we're also passing in the body, which should contain that updated student info. And then we're sending back whatever's coming back from our query. Questions? Yeah. Okay.
Never mind. I got it.
Well, there's only one way to find out if it works. So we are no longer making a GET request. Let's try to update ID 7. I'm going to just copy paste all of this. Let's make a request to ID 7. I'm going to do a put. And our body, oh, it's already here. I'm going to say, for some reason I want to say Sri Lanka. What is Sri Lanka's job?
Being Shrek.
Being Shrek?
Yeah.
Cool. Hometown lat, I'm not going to change any of that. Use of superpower? Great. Hips don't lie.
I know, I think that's a useful thing.
All right, so what do we expect to happen? Give me a hand, somebody. Yeah, what's up?
The ID of 7, the body would change to that.
We expect whatever ID 7 is in our table to now be updated with this information. Great. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. Fire. Dun dun dun. Loading, loading, loading. Loading. We're making a put request to ID 7, giving it this body in a JSON format, but it's hanging. Let's check it out. Ooh. Res.send status is deprecated. Invalid status code.
So I use dot returning on my query.
Uh-huh.
That's how I got rid of that.
Ah.
That's how I got rid of that.
So you're using returning. So what do you think that changes in our query? So does anybody? Yeah. Sorry? Doesn't necessarily stop the code. Does anybody else have anything to add? Because like what happens in our post route if you don't add a returning to it? Anybody remember? It just sends back like an object that has the command that you issued and some other fields that I don't know what to do with, right? You don't actually get your student object back to see that it was actually posted. It'll send you back an object that says, you did an insert, and here's some other information. But it doesn't actually give you your student object back. Returning will actually send you back what you did. But we do have a deprecated thing. We're supposed to use res.send status. Oh wait. Use res.send status instead. Okay, and that's at 28. Let's fix that real quick. 28. Res.send updated student. Huh. So that's what our error is saying to do. Let's see what happens. Couldn't get any response. It timed out. Oh, it looks like we're timing out again. What's up?
Mine has res.json and it works.
Ooh, res.json. Okay, so let's see if we got a different error this time. Invalid status code. Oh, that makes sense because I don't think that we're sending back an actual status. We're sending back an object, which is not a status. Okay, so let's see. On our put, let's try res.json then. So this means that it is formatting it as a JSON and sending it back that way. Run it again. Yeah. Ooh. We got a 200 and we got a 1. Yeah, please. Let's do that. We don't want to do a put, we want to do a get. We're going to do a get all. Send that. Oi. Can't zoom in anymore? Alright. Let's go down. There's 7. It's now at the bottom, so the order is a little bit different. But it worked. Woo! But now if we want to see the object that we updated come back, how would we change our query? Not quite, because right now our query isn't like it's updating the thing, but similar to our post route, it's not sending us back the object that we posted. We can use a dot returning. Dot returning. Give me all of it. Alright, so now I'm just going to go ahead and send the same request again, but to a different ID. Put to, let's change 3. So I think I still have that one. Yeah. Ah, there we go. We still have our outer array on it, which don't really need. We're getting one object back, and that's just going to make it more complicated on the front end. So what can we do to get rid of that outer array? On what? Students over here. Updated student. Updated student at 0. So now we're sending back the 0 index of the array that we've got. Benny, come here. Hey. All right. Let's see. I believe that should work. So now let's update 4. The body should be the same. And there we go. There's our response. We get our ID back of 4. It is updated. It doesn't have the outer array. It's a great way for it to be formatted. Does anybody have any questions about that? Yeah.
We were discussing the difference between put and patch.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the way that I understand it, put is going to replace the entire thing, right? So you can't just update one field. You have to pass the entire object. Whereas patch, I think that you should be able to like just give one of the attributes and update that specific thing. Yeah.
You can input just one of the key value pairs in a put, and
It'll do the same thing?
Yeah, so you can just go back up to your initial
Yeah.
put.
Let's try it out.
Use a random name instead and get rid of everything else.
Sri Lanka.
Because that's what we thought as well, and then we games.
And then get rid of the comma as well, because I'll break it.
Right? ID 4. Send. Huh, it worked.
So there's no like law around that, but the intention, like you should try to use a put to update the whole entity and a patch to update part of it. It's kind of up to you, like what you're doing in your queries, right? Like on the server as far as how it's implemented. But like the expected behavior would be that a patch is just a little chunk of it and the put is the whole thing. So of course you can do whatever. You can make a delete HTTP request that like on the server you just like insert something that's super wonky. But that's not like it's conventional.
Cool. Yeah.
Second question.
Yeah.
I didn't think mine was working at first because I didn't realize that it was putting my changed values at the bottom of the
Uh-huh.
list. Is there any way to make it not do that, or is that just like? Because I mean, now it's like not ordered numerically.
Right,
So
right.
It's all messy and.
Yeah. I think that you can use like some order by functions from knex, similar to how you could with SQL, so that when you do your GET request, you can order by and it will return them in the right order. I don't know that there's necessarily a way to update it and have it not drop. But for sure when you do your GET request, you can always just order by ID, like descending. Other questions? Going once. Going twice. All right. Thank y'all. Good job.